I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make vanilla cupcakes, and this is what they look like. These cupcakes have a really nice vanilla flavor with a soft and tender texture. We're going to frost them with the confectioner frosting, also called a buttercream frosting. And then, if you want, you can garnish with some candied or even chocolate sprinkles. So the first thing that you will need to do is to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. And then you will need a 12-cup, you could either call it a muffin or a cupcake pan. I've lined mine with just paper liners. If you don't want to use those, you could just either butter the inside of the cups or even spray them with one of those nonstick sprays. And then for our vanilla, it's kind of a butter cake batter. If you have a stand mixer like I have here, use your paddle attachment, or you could just use a hand mixer for this. We're using the creaming method, which means we beat the butter with the sugar and then the vanilla, the eggs, and then the flour and milk. Standard method. So you will need to start a half a cup, 113 grams of butter. Have your butter at room temperature. I'm using salted butter, or I'm using unsalted butter. Getting ahead of myself. I'm using unsalted butter because that way I can control the amount of salt I have in my cupcakes. But if you have a favorite salted butter, by all means use that. So I'm just going to put that in there, and I'm going to just beat it to soften it. One little trick, my butter is a little, not quite room temperature. So if you just beat it for, 30 seconds, it kind of softens it. Kind of a trick if you're, or I guess you could put it in the microwave. I'm just going to beat it on medium speed just for maybe 30 seconds. Okay, simple enough there. And when you're making any batter, periodically stop, scrape down the sides and the bottom of your bowl, because you want to make sure everything gets mixed together. So what I'm going to do now is add 2/3 of a cup, which is 135 grams of granulated white sugar. Mine is kind of off-white because it's organic, either one. And then we're making vanilla cupcakes, so I'm adding 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. So now I'm going to beat this on medium-high speed. I want to mix everything together, plus I want to get some air in the mixture, because that's going to make our cupcakes nice and light tasting. So medium-high speed, maybe 3-4 minutes. Okay, we're done. So that's what we're looking for, just a nice mixture. And now we're going to add 3 large eggs. Have your eggs at room temperature. Now, a large egg out of the shell is about 50 grams, so you will need 3. 3 would be 150 grams of eggs. So I'm going to add the eggs one at a time. Put one in, beat that in on medium speed, and then the next, and then the next. Okay, I'm just going to scrape that down. Now, your batter may, because that's a lot of eggs, may look a little curdled. Don't panic. That's normal. Some people really don't like that. If you don't, you could add like a tablespoon of your flour just to smooth it out, but I'm not going to. And last egg. Okay, that's that. Not too difficult. So now in a separate bowl, I have 1.5 cups, which is 195 grams of all-purpose flour, plain flour. To that, I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons, which would be 6 grams of baking powder. That's going to give our cupcakes a lift there. And 1/4 teaspoon, just 1 gram. I'm using a fine kosher salt. You could just use a table salt. And I'm just whisking. You just use a fork. You could sift it if you want to aerate your flour a little. And besides your flour mixture, you will need 1/4 cup, 60 milliliters, 60 grams of milk. Have your milk at room temperature. Now, you could use whole milk. That'll give you a richer flavor to your cupcake. Or you could use a reduced fat if that's all you have in the house. So what I'm going to do is add the flour in 3 additions, alternating with the milk in 2. So just eyeball about 1/3 of the flour. It's not critical. And do it on low speed. You don't want that flour coming up in your face. Okay, I'm going to add a little of my milk. A little more of my flour. Rest of the milk. Time to scrape. And then we'll just add the rest of the flour and we are done. Not too difficult. Okay, we are done. I'm just going to do the rest by hand here. You know, I really like cupcakes, especially if you're having, you know, company over and you don't want to be bothered cutting the cake. You know, if you have a cake, you got to cut every slice. This way you just can do everything ahead of time, get your tray, put all your cupcakes out. Everybody can help themselves. I find a lot less work. Plus, kids love, everybody likes their own little cake. And then you could decorate them differently, you know, some with candy sprinkles, some with chocolate. So just mix it all in there, make sure you get all the flour. So now we're going to fill our cups. The most important thing is try to get the same amount of batter in each one so that they all bake in the same amount of time. You don't want some overbaked, some underbaked. So now you can just use 2 spoons. That's perfectly fine. Or if you have like a little ice cream or cookie scoop, whatever you want to call it, you can use that. I find it's about, you know, 1/2 to 2/3 full. Of course, it depends on the size of your cups, muffin cups or cupcake. But that's about right. Okay, I think I got enough here for this last one. We will see. I'm just gonna scrape that out. I'm just going to snitch a little. Okay, I think we're good. So now, for baking, there's not a lot of batter in each one. So we really have to be careful about the baking time. Everyone's oven is a little different. I'm going to say 16 to 18 minutes, but I would test them probably at least at 15 minutes just to see, because it only takes a minute or two to go from a really nice, moist and tender cupcake to dry and crumbly, and nobody wants that. So always test them before the stated baking time. I would say at least at 15 minutes. So, of course, the toothpick test inserted into the center will come out clean, but you can also tell just by kind of looking at them. They will rise, and when they will look dry. You don't want any like wet spots, and when you touch it, it will be set. It won't be like your finger won't drop into the batter. That means it's not fully baked. So I'm going to say 16 to 18 minutes. I do rotate my pan about halfway through baking just to get a really even bake. Okay, so our cupcakes are done. So put your pan on a wire rack. Don't they look gorgeous? A toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean. Plus, if you touch, it's set. So what we're going to do, I'm going to let them cool in the pan maybe about 5 minutes, and then you could use a knife or an offset spatula to transfer them over to a wire rack to finish cooling. When they're at room temperature, we will come back and make our confectioner frosting. So now for our confectioner frosting or buttercream frosting. Again, use your paddle attachment, or you could use a hand mixer for this. We're going to start with a half a cup, 113 grams of butter. Again, have it at room temperature, salted, unsalted, your choice. And I'm just going to beat it just to soften it a little. Okay. And then we need some confectioner sugar, also known as powdered or icing sugar. You will need 2 cups, which is 230 grams. And I do sift it because this type of sugar tends to have lumps. So I'm just using a strainer. You can actually buy a sifter. And I've already done that. So then we're going to I'm just going to add a little bit here just to get this going. I'm going to beat that in, on low speed because you don't want that coming up in your face. Okay, scrape, and then I'm going to add the rest of the sugar along with, we're going to make this vanilla flavored as well. 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. Could you use a different flavor? Yeah, you could do that if you don't want vanilla, but since we're making vanilla cupcakes, just put the rest in there. Now I'm going to start this on low speed. It's a lot of sugar to mix in. Once it's mixed together, then I'm going to put the mixer speed on medium-high, and I'm going to beat it for a couple minutes just to make it really nice and light and airy. You might want to a few times stop and scrape down the sides and bottom of your bowl. But start low speed. Okay, so we beat it together. Now, it's quite thick right now. It's a little too thick, especially if you want to pipe it. So what we're going to do is thin it with 1 to 2 tablespoons of either cream, or if you don't have cream, you can just use milk. So start with maybe 1.5. I'm going to beat that in and let it be for about a minute, because the more you beat it, the lighter in texture it will become, which I like. So. Okay, so I did end up using 2 tablespoons of cream to get it to where I like it, like that. Now, if you kind of put too much cream and it's too thin, don't worry. You could just add a little more of your powdered sugar. If it's too thick, add a little more cream, so you can play with it. Now, if you want to just plain, like white, your frosting, that's fine. If you want to color it, you can. There's different types of food coloring. I'm using the gel paste. You can use like liquid if you want, whatever. And I'm doing pink. I like pink. A pink on today. So you can put as much or as little as you want. Remember, especially with the gel paste, it's very concentrated, so typically you don't need that much. You tend to need more if you're using liquid than gel. So I'm gonna see. Looks pretty good. I just used 2 drops. So I'm gonna scrape this, make sure I don't have streaks of white and pink, although you might like that. And if you wanted to do more than one color, then you could just divide up your frosting into different bowls and add different colors. That's always fun, especially like a kid's birthday party or something. Boys and girls might want different colors. Girls and girls might want different colors. Okay. Okay, that looks good. Make sure that color is all mixed in. And yes, you could take this cupcake and do like a chocolate frosting or any other type of cream cheese frosting. You don't have to limit yourself to this type. But, you know, it's a classic. Everybody seems to like it. If I'm doing this, even for kids or just for my family, there's 2 ways to frost. Now, you know, the tendons, there's a lot. If you go to buy them, they tend to do this with the swirls. They pipe it, which looks really cool, I must admit. But sometimes I think it's a little too much frosting to cupcake for me. So a lot of time, like if I'm just doing it for my family, or you were doing it, say if you have kids and you have to take them to a school event, you might just want to take a knife, offset spatula, and just put a little bit of frosting. I think parents will thank you for that. So the kids aren't on too much of a sugar high. So you just kind of, you know. To me, the cake to frosting ratio is about right. And I don't know, it's okay, maybe they call it old-fashioned, this look, but I like it. So there's that. Now, of course, the trend for quite a few years now is to do the swirls. So we will do that. So a piping bag, if you don't have a piping bag, you can just use like a plastic bag, freezer bag. And there's all different types of tips. I'm using a star tip. There's different sizes of star tips, really. You can use a plain, whatever you want. So you put your I should show you that. So you get your bag. Usually you have to cut off the end so that when you put the tip in, the tip is showing. And then what I do is take your bag and twist it and kind of put it in there. Do that for any type of frosting. That way, when you're filling your bag, the frosting doesn't come out. And then, to make it really easy, especially if it's your first time, get a cup, fold down the top like that, and then you have your hands free. And if you're, just as a side note, when you're using your gel paste or any type, put it on like a plate or a paper towel. You don't want that. That can stain your counter, so be very careful. So, and then just put your frosting in your bag. Now, if you were getting really carried away and have real high swirls on your cupcake, you might have to make more frosting than this. This amount of frosting is really good for just this. If you're like the real, like tall, you might have to make another half batch of your frosting. Just keep that in mind. Excuse me here while I don't have it. If I had a flat edge, I'm sorry, I don't. So we will have to make do. So usually I use my scraper to scrape it down. I'm not prepared. Sorry. It happens. So just keep pushing it down, and then you can, and keep pushing it till you can start to see. Now, if I had my scraper, I would scrape this. You could use a knife and then open it up to get any air out, and then twist. So, one hand, and I'm right-handed, so I have in my right hand, and this is my hand to guide. So I'll take a cupcake, and I start on the outside and go in, so around like that. It does look cool, doesn't it? A lot of frosting, but it looks really cool. So that's the two ways you can do it. And like I said, kids like sprinkles, candy sprinkles, chocolate sprinkles, whatever. Or leave it plain, which I'm going to do today. Well, I'm going to have, because I did say this is my... Okay. Carrie wants some. No. That's really good. See, I think this is the perfect amount for me. I want to really taste the cake, not just frosting. So this is the way I like it. But have it that way too. So you have a nice vanilla flavor, both with the cupcake and the frosting. It's very soft and tender, the cupcake. Really, really good flavor. And then you get that smooth and creamy frosting on top. You know, it's kind of the perfect classic vanilla cupcake. And with cupcakes, because they're just little small cakes, you know, the best is the day they're made. That's when they're the softest and tender. You can cover and store them a day or two. That's fine. You could freeze them. So I think you should definitely try these. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.